Anyway, I would like to introduce Steve Frank, who is California's favorite political pundit. And he is the editor of California Political News and Reviews, and make sure to subscribe for that if you haven't already. And with that, take it away, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy. I'm glad I finally figured out what the problem was and was able to get the speakers on. Probably the number one issue today is the recall of Governor Newsom and the analysis of that race. I want to give this audience information that I just received less than an hour ago that will be in my newsletter on Monday, in my Heard on the Tom-Toms, that is beyond surprising. As you know, we already have the wannabe Republican, Kevin Faulconer, claiming to be a Republican, but with Democrat values, running for governor. We have John Cox, the 218 nominee for governor for the Republican Party. You have Doug Osee, the former congressman, running. You have the potential of Rick Grinnell running. And I might add, he has formed a new organization called Fix California. And two of the three purposes of Fix California is one, to sue the registrar of voters to clean up the voting rolls from the dead people and those who have moved out of state. And second, to support educational choice, which is going to be a ballot measure on the November 2022 ballot. And so here you have a national Republican, Rick Grinnell, who happens to live in Palm Springs. That's his home and has been for many, many years. And that he has set up a California-centric organization, Fix California, in preparation for a race for governor. And the next person I'd like to mention is Caitlyn Jenner. Now, many of you know Caitlyn Jenner from the cartoonish TV show Keeping Up with the Kardashians. He's the bumbling father who could never do anything right, who is always belittled and emotionally assaulted by all the women on the show. If you're a aficionado of that show, you know there are no men on that show, that all the men have been divorced or ignored, or the one man, there are two men on the show. One is Scott Disick, and they play him as a cartoon character. And the other person is a guy named Corey, whose purpose, if you watch the show, and I know we're all adults, the only purpose he has on being on the show is to service Kris Jenner, if you catch my drift. And so this is a show where men are not wanted, liked, and are abused. So it's not a great shock that Bruce Jenner turns into Caitlyn Jenner. Now Caitlyn Jenner has made the determination that they will run for governor. Who is running the campaign? And here's the big news. The person running the campaign is a gentleman by the name of Ryan Irwin. Ryan Irwin at one time was the executive director of the California Republican Party. In 2018, he ran the campaign for the Manchurian candidate, Cole Harris, who ran for lieutenant governor of California. But here's the big name, and I hope you're holding on for this one. They have hired a general counsel to do all the legal work for Caitlyn Jenner. The name of that general counsel is Harmeet Dillon. Harmeet Dillon is supporting Caitlyn Jenner for governor. And as for me and a lot of my friends who I've emailed almost immediately upon finding that out, everyone is surprised and shocked that a national committee woman would, first of all, take a position on a governor's race, and second, do it for Caitlyn Jenner. It's my personal opinion, it's just mine, is that for the last couple of years, because Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner have not been on in the media, that this is a publicity stunt that just got out of hand. And now Caitlyn Jenner is going to be forced to run for governor. But remember, in 2003, we had people like Kate Morgan, who was a porn star, run. You had Larry Flint of Hustler. He ran for governor. And so they use this as a publicity gimmick. And maybe Caitlyn Jenner just wants to see the name in the papers and talked about again. And of course, once the recall is over, people will just ignore Caitlyn Jenner once again. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner can live the life that they want to live, and that's their business, not ours. And of course, Caitlyn Jenner has done nothing in the Republican Party. Loved Trump at one time, denounced Trump at another time, is just very confused on a lot of things. But the idea that our National Committee woman, Harmeet Dillon, is doing this, that is a shock, a real shock to me and a lot of my friends, that she would take such a position with such a candidate. Now, it's one thing to take a position with a candidate after they win a nomination, but it's another to do it in a primary, and certainly a candidate who will be as controversial as Caitlyn Jenner will be in this race. So that's the status of that. Just to let you know, today's the 9th of April. In 20 days, the Secretary of State has to release the number of verified signatures. We all believe it's going to be way above 1.5 million, which is good. Then from that point on, the governor has 30 days to convince enough people to take their name off the petition to unverify the number of signatures needed. That won't happen. And so we are going to go to the races. And it's apparently the governor's race is going to be held somewhere between the 15th of September and the 15th of October, though the Democrats are trying to work to have this on November 2nd. And the argument is going to be, wow, it's only a year to the next election. Why are we doing this at all? The more interesting thing about November 2nd is that there's a series of recall elections going on around the state, including one in San Diego. The progressive Democrats are trying to recall a socialist Democrat who's not liberal enough for them on the city council. And so that recall election will probably be consolidated with the recall election of Governor Newsom. So we may see other consolidations. And as you notice in my newsletter, I talk about recall mania. I had a great conversation yesterday morning with Carl DeMaio of Reform California, and he knows of numerous other recall efforts that have gotten started, that are looking for advisors, and he and I and others are advising a whole bunch of recall efforts around the state. And of course, you good folks in San Jose, Los Gatos, Los Altos, and the rest of Santa Clara County, you have a series of potential recalls on school boards in the Silicon Valley, promoted by the liberal progressives of the county that are tired of the schools being closed. One other interesting factor, there's a recall of the district attorney of San Francisco, Chesa Boudin. There's also a recall of 3 of the members of the San Francisco Board of Education. Now, a friend of mine is the one that is leading the recall of the district attorney, Boudin. And now we know, and I had a story in my newsletter, a few days ago that the financing of the recall of the district attorney of San Francisco is actually being done by venture capitalists of the Silicon Valley. They have made a determination that they can't keep employees in San Francisco, create new businesses in San Francisco, or even travel to San Francisco as long as District Attorney Bodine is still in office. So they're willing to spend a great deal of money in order to get rid of the District Attorney of San Francisco, miles away from where they actually live, but they do business in San Francisco. So there's a lot of changes going on in the state. And within the Republican Party, as you know, it's a fight between the grassroots people and the establishment people. Grassroots people want to win elections, and the establishment people just want to keep control of the party. The Democrat Party is going through a somewhat similar fight, and this plays into what's going to happen in 2022 for all of us to be aware of. As you know, because Jan and Wendy and some of the others on this call are delegates to the California Republican Party, to be a delegate to the California Republican Party, you need to have somebody appoint you a nominee of the party, or a county committee or an organization that is chartered appoint you. That's how we do it in the Republican Party. The Democrat Party does it differently. They don't have appointees, appointers. What they do is they have assembly district elections, and people literally run assembly district by assembly district for the honor of being on the Democrat state party delegation. Now, there's been a whole series of these elections in February and March, and in a lot of these elections, it was the traditional Democrats, the Union Democrats, the establishment Democrats, versus the progressive Democrats, versus the Sanders Democrats, the progressives who are openly socialists, working through a group called DSA, Democrat Socialists of America. And in district after district, the Democrat Socialists of America beat back the progressives, beat back the unions, and won overwhelming victories, and will have a lot of delegates at the next convention. As some of you may know, I live in the 25th Congressional District, which is Mike Garcia's seat, and it looked like Christy Smith was going to run against Garcia again in 2022. And it was just going to be a normal Democrat versus Republican election. Earlier this week, a city councilwoman from Simi Valley, an open socialist, has decided she's going to run for the Democrat nomination with the support of the Democrat Socialists of America. And she's going to be their candidate. And if I was a betting person, and I've never bought a lottery ticket, I believe she's going to win the nomination away from the traditional Democrat, Christy Smith. And this is going on statewide, assembly district, congressional district, state senate district. It is the Democrat Socialists of America are taking over the California Democrat Party. And if you don't think that's possible, look at our neighboring state of Nevada, where the Democrat Socialists of America won 4 of the 5 top seats in the Nevada State Democrat Party, including the chairmanship, took over the Democrat Party. The whole staff of the Democrat Party quit. The Democrat mayor of North Las Vegas, which is a suburban town next to Las Vegas, a lifetime Democrat, on Monday changed his registration from Democrat to Republican because he said his party was taken over by the socialists. So we're going to see in 2022 in California and in a lot of other states, but here in California, we're going to see a massive fight between the socialists as well as the the traditional Union Democrats. Now, why do I bring all this up in the context of the recall? Because it is my belief that the Republicans are going to have Grinnell, Jenner, Earl Weber, Major Williams, Doug Osee, John Cox, and Kevin Faulconer as a significant candidate, and Diego Martinez as significant candidates for governor. The Democrats, on the other hand, it looks like they may have Antonio Villaraigosa as their candidate for governor on the second part of the ballot. And the unions hate Villaraigosa, so they won't support him. The progressive socialists don't like Villaraigosa. They won't support him. So if we're able to pass the first part of the ballot, yes, on the recall, then a Republican will win the governorship of California. I hope you're able to connect all these dots. And the Democrats and the progressives and the socialists say, we don't care if a Republican serves as governor for 17 months, which is all it would be until the next election, and the results of the election are determined, because we have a veto-proof legislature. So no legislation gets passed that the new Republican governor wants. Second, judicial appointments have to be approved by the Senate. And the Democrats in the Senate will say, we won't approve any judicial appointments by a Republican governor. And so the ability of the Republican governor to govern the state of California will be minimized. And so the election in 2022 will be between a Republican who is trying to run the state and be a governor, and Democrats who just want power. It'll be a most interesting juxtaposition of issues for the November 2022 election. And I truly believe the Democrats are going to allow us to have a Republican governor. And the question is, who is that going to be? So on the recall, there's so many nuances and connecting of dots and the ability to look at the different parties involved. It's no longer Republican versus Democrat. There's no Republican Party left in the state of California. And I might say there's no Democrat Party left in the state of California. We are in that interesting historical position where both parties are trying to find themselves and can't find a psychiatrist willing to take on their case and sit us down on a couch and figure out who we are and why we are. And so we're going to do that through the election process. And that's going to be fascinating. And so with all of that going on, the state of California is still being run. And most interestingly, the state of California has a massive surplus with or without the federal money coming in. Now, there is a bill in Congress, and I don't know the number, but that will say that if a city or county takes any federal housing money, they have to get rid of their zoning laws and outlaw single-family zoning. In other words, the Democrats in Congress do not want single-family housing in America, which is the American dream. They want to totally transform that into what they have in China and in the old Soviet Union, now called Russia. They want to have massive complexes owned by the government, controlled by the government. And here's how it works. Under the bill, let's say Wendy has a home in Los Gatos in the middle of a residential neighborhood. She sells her home to a developer. Under this law, that developer can take down that house that she just sold, put up a 4 to 8 story apartment building on that land in the middle of it and make it affordable housing to bring in crime, to create a slum, which automatically brings down the value of the homes surrounding that. And people will be selling out quickly so they don't lose as much equity as they would if they waited a year or two. And her neighborhood within 3 to 4 years will be one gigantic slum, the whole community. And that's what the goal is to make America a slum with that type of legislation. It looks like it may pass Congress. I'm not sure it will pass the Senate, but we are in deep trouble because in Sacramento, there's also a bill to do the same. And that bill is going to pass. And the governor said he is going to sign it. So regardless of the federal government's extortion, if you take housing money, you have to have affordable housing. Our Democrats in Sacramento are saying, we don't care what Washington does. We're going to kill single family houses in California. And of course, that means a lot of productive people are going to leave the state. A lot of big businesses are going to leave the state. How many of you want to live in a crime-ridden, disease-ridden slum? Do you want to live in the Bronx? Do you want to live in Chicago or the suburbs of or in Boston, where you have all this crime like they have in Philadelphia because of these affordable housing slums that are created by government? So we are in for a dramatic transformation of the culture and tradition of California and of our ability as Californians and as well as Americans to live as we want to and to get that American dream. Last night, my wife and I love watching these TV shows about housing from Home Garden TV network, and people are buying houses, selling houses, flipping houses, remodeling, rehabbing houses. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. It gives us ideas for things we want to do for our home. And there was a show about a lady in Columbia, South Carolina, who wanted to buy a home, her first home. She was born in an apartment, raised and lived in an apartment, still lives in an apartment, has a young daughter, and wants to buy her first home. And the show goes on about how she finally picks a house. And this was a Black lady who wanted to live the American dream of having a home of her own, that without neighbors, without having to go up 2 or 3 floors, without taking elevators to get to her house, that she could decorate and do it with as she pleased. She wanted the American dream. And it's not just white Americans, but it's Black Americans, Hispanic Americans that the socialists are trying to take away the American dream from. And that's something, excuse me, that's something that we need to be careful of, because it is happening, and it's happening now. And while we're paying attention to the recall, and we're seeing an incoherent president bringing in criminals from foreign countries that include not only criminals, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, but also including hundreds, if not thousands of people that have the virus. The number one spreader of the virus in the United States is not somebody that goes to a restaurant and refuses to wear a mask. It's the president of the United States who's bringing in disease-ridden people into our country, and that we get to pay for it. So that'll give you some idea as some of the stuff that's going on here in California. But the most important thing that's going on is that recall mania has taken hold. Down in La Mesa, a school board member made a comment that opening schools is akin to slavery. In Camarillo, 2 city council members decided to say only one race counts, and every other race has to be subservient to that one race. That's called racism. And that's happening in California. We have a district attorney in Los Angeles, a district attorney in San Francisco that are being recalled, and up and down the state, there are recall efforts going on. At least 36 that we could point to right now. In fact, today in Ventura County, my home county, we're getting the approval to start a petition drive to recall a member of the Board of Supervisors who's just bad and a liar about where she stands on issues. She says one thing to the public and then votes another way at the Board of Supervisors. And finally, the people got angry enough that a recall effort has gotten started. This is going on across the nation, across the state, I should say. Most importantly, the California Republican Party has nothing to do with this. Nothing. They are bystanders, not even sure they're watching it or even know what's going on. It is the people that are making the difference. And so I don't want to berate the state party. They could do whatever they please, whatever little bit they're going to do. I'm very pleased and proud that the voters of California, the people who actually did the recall of Newsom, those who are doing the recall of Gascon in LA and Bodine in San Francisco, the school board members, city council members, all of these recalls are being done by citizen groups, not Republican groups, not Democrat groups, but community groups that have formed to do the right thing. Maybe this is the transformation we need in California to change the party system, because the party system has failed both the Republicans and the Democrats. And so that'll give you some ideas, some of the stuff going on. I know the best part of these monthly meetings are the questions that are raised. And so I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have. Hold on to your hats. It's going to be an interesting roller coaster ride between now and September and October, and then through November 2022. We are shaking up politics in America by shaking up politics in California. So one day I'm ready to open for any questions.
Always enlightening, Steve. Thank you. Okay. Let's start with a question from Linda Hilson. Should we continue to support the recall? Contribute to it?
I presume this is the recall of Governor Newsom.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, but we're in a different phase of the recall. And I've been working with the various groups and some new groups. Remember, there's going to be all these candidates for governor. And that, God bless them, they're all running, and that's good. They'll all make their case as to why they should be the one for governor, and I appreciate that. Our responsibility is not to elect John Doe or Jane Doe as governor. Our responsibility is the first question, that Gavin Newsom should be recalled as governor. That's what we need to do. We need to concentrate on getting the general population to support the recall, not talking about who becomes the replacement, but we need to get the recall passed. And here's one statistic that's great. PPIC, which is an excellent polling organization, did a poll about 3-4 weeks ago. 44% of Hispanics in California want Newsom recalled. 44%. We could build on that, but not only build on that for the recall, but if we're smart enough, we're going to be able to build on that for 2022 as well. Because the failures of Newsom are not just his alone, it's the failure of the Democrat Party. And the second part of that, Governor Newsom supported the most belligerent, vile, discriminatory ballot measure that even the Ku Klux Klan could not come up with. He supported Prop 16. The Democrat Party supported Prop 16. That was the proposition to kick out Asian Americans from state colleges and universities and not allow them to apply for enrollment. under the current situation, approximately 35% of the students in the state colleges and universities are Asian American. If Prop 16 had passed, only 15% would be. That means they'd have to discriminate against Asian Americans on the basis of their race, of their ethnic origin. That's anti-American. And we should be working with the Asian Pacific community to remind them that it's the Democrats that don't want them around. So when I hear about all the efforts to stop the attacks, the hate crimes against Asian Americans, they don't go far enough. We need to stop the Democrat Party for their hate attacks on Asian Americans. And what's more hateful than setting a quota on students being allowed to enroll because of their race? That's a hate crime. And they should be indicted for that type of crime.
They should be, definitely. Rowena, are you seeing a question out there?
No, but I have a comment about Asian American hate crime. As you can tell, I am the only Asian American on the City Council of Montecito. And Tuesday night, there was a resolution that 2 of the council members actually wanted to put to pass on anti-American hatred. The problem was there was a whereas clause in there that said that all of this was started by President Trump. Yeah. And this is the same resolution that was passed by the Cities Association. And so I asked them to remove that clause in there. And we're still going through it. We haven't finished it, but AAPI, for example, has actually released a statement that they support Governor Newsom. So
well, that's amazing. They support somebody that hates them.
Yep. Yeah.
That's called in language. That's called self-loathing. It's like the head of the American Federation of Teachers who denounced Jews for wanting to open schools because Jews are the ownership class, and the head of the AFT herself is Jewish. How more self-loathing is that trying to do like the Nazis did, blame everything on the Jews? And by the way, full disclosure, those who are new here that don't know me, I am Jewish. And so it's just disgusting to me to see somebody who's Jewish hating Jews.
They need to see that psychiatrist you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
So where do you think we're going to go with this extortion that Newsom's that's paying the unions here, the teachers unions, to get people to go back to school? What do you think is going to happen on the June 15th Open California date?
First of all, I don't think it will happen on June 15th. I think it will happen even sooner because the governor is doing all of it. If it wasn't for the recall, we'd be as closed as Michigan and in the same trouble as Michigan, which is bad. But we will have an opening of society. People will stop wearing masks because there's no value to it. None. The chair of the Lake County Central Committee, who's also the chair of chairs, Lonnie Kane, I went up to Lake County a couple weeks ago to speak to her fundraising group, and they were selling masks. And it was a black mask with white lettering, and the lettering says, "This mask is as worthless as Joe Biden."
There you go. I have one that says about the governor too.
So in today's news, I bet all of you have gone to restaurants where you see where the tables are being deep cleaned and they keep rubbing and doing all that. Well, I have an article from the CDC saying it's a waste of time. A waste of time. that there's no need for it.
Uh,
It doesn't do anything, but it makes people feel good. But it's more than that. It allows government to control us. And as we open up, we're going to stop listening to government because government has lied to us constantly. And the best example of that is the liar in chief, Dr. Anthony Fauci. When Texas got rid of their mask mandate and totally opened, he claimed that the number of cases of the virus are going to explode in Texas. It's going to be a disaster. President Biden called them Neanderthals. So what has happened? In Texas, the number of cases has plummeted to the lowest it's ever been, one of the lowest in the nation, all because they got rid of the mask. And last Sunday, Fauci was asked about this contradiction. You know, you said it was going to be terrible. It isn't. What's your response? And he said, as Joe Biden should say to a lot of things, oh, I'm just confused. Well, of course you're confused. You have no idea what you're talking about. You've lied to us. You originally said 15 days and it's over with. That was a lie. You said we don't need to wear masks. Now you're telling us to wear double and triple masks. You're telling us that if you take off the mask, you'll die. Instead, people wearing the mask in Michigan are the ones dying. And by the way, here's the number for you. 2,249 people as of last Friday have died by taking the vaccine, and at least 104 cases of miscarriages due to the vaccine. And there's still, if 2,249 people died in any catastrophe in this country, it would be front page news. We'd be saying, what happened? Let's not do it again. And they're trying to tell us, but here's the best part. The CDC finally admitted, and I think it's going to be in my either tomorrow or Monday's edition, taking the vaccine is no guarantee that you're not going to get the virus. It'll make you feel good. It's a placebo, but it's no guarantee you're not going to get the virus because they already have hundreds of cases of people who took the vaccine that got the virus.
Including my doctor, who's been pushing that vaccine like crazy. And he put out this video stating that, yeah, I got the virus after being fully vaccinated, but I didn't get it as bad because I had the vaccine. Like, where's the proof of that?
The guy's just lying to himself. He has to, if he's a doctor, he has to be smart enough. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to my doctor on a normal visit. And unfortunately, it was by Zoom because you don't get real visits anymore. Yeah. And the guy's a nice guy. He's been my doctor for years. And one of the questions he asked me is, have I taken the vaccine yet? And I said, nope, not going to. Well, Steve, it's good for you. I said, okay, Dr. Tom, you tell me, you give me all these medicines. And when you give me a new med, you tell me what the upsides are and what the downsides are, what the side effects are. And we make an informed decision as to whether or not I should take that medication. And we go through it very thoroughly, each medication. And I appreciate that. So let's go through this vaccine. What are the effects of this vaccine on me? And my health issues 1, 3, and 5 years from now. Oh, I don't know. Do you know what they are today? Well, 90% is good. Hubert Humphrey once said, cancer is fatal in 5% of the cases, but in the case of the individual, it's 100%. Well, am I the 5% or the 100%? I don't want to take, if you, the doctor, don't know what the effects are of a medicine, a vaccine, why would I take it? You wouldn't allow me to take any other medicine without knowing what the effects are. Why this one? So that ended the conversation. And that's how we have to act with doctors who say, take the vaccine. ask them what the effects are on you personally. You know, there's 50 people on this call. Every person is different health-wise. And that's what makes us up. And that's okay. But the effect is different on every person. And your doctor has to know what the effect is on you, Wendy, not on Jan, not on Rowena, but on you when you take the vaccine. And so if they can't answer the question, why would you take any medicine that they don't know the effects of?
Very true. My husband says he's going to be last in line and I'll be right in front of him. So, that's my own personal decision though. Rowena, did you find a question?
Yes, I have a question here from our participants. This is from Mr. Goldberg. He says, changing state politics at the state level seems nearly hopeless. What's your opinion of the tactic of nullification of unconstitutional state laws at the county level by the sheriff?
There are a group of sheriffs, 4 or 5, I believe, that call themselves constitutional sheriffs here in the state of California. Even they have not attempted to nullify state gun laws, sanctuary city laws, or anything else. It's a good development. But Rowena, my suggestion is the recall. Start at the bottom. There's an old saying that when you feel the heat, you see the light. And if we start recalling city council members, school board members, governors, district attorneys, a lot of these things will go away because they will have seen the heat and felt the heat and seen the light, that they can no longer get away with this. It doesn't come from the top, it comes from the bottom up. And that's what we need to do.
Wendy, if may I ask another question that came in?
Go ahead.
Do you think we can get an honest vote? Many of our counties use the Dominion voting machines, and I've been hearing that even here locally, some of our Democrat politicians owe their electoral success to those machines. Can anything be done? Is anything being done to ensure that we get an honest election?
Election Integrity Project California is suing 13 counties to get an honest election in those counties. The new organization, Fix California, formed by Rick Grinnell, is going to be suing the registrar of voters in every county to get the dead and the those who have left the state off the voting rolls. The sad part is the California Republican Party is sitting on its hands as if none of this exists. In fact, worst part, they are going to be used by the Democrats to say if the Republican Party doesn't think it's wrong, because they haven't sued us or tried to stop it, they have normalized, the California Republican Party has normalized corrupt elections in the state of California. Again, everything has to come from the bottom up, outside the party. Let Linda Payne and Election Integrity Project do their thing. Let Rick Grinnell do his thing. There's a series of other lawsuits around the state, none supported by the state Republican Party, because the Republican Party has done nothing for election integrity. Not even a press release. Not even a press release. And so they have joined with the Democrat Party as saying corruption's okay.
The last I heard from Harmeet, she doesn't think that there's any election integrity lacking in California, surprisingly.
Are you talking about the lady who's general counsel for Caitlyn Jenner?
Yeah, that one.
I have no idea what's in her mind. We know through a city called Ada, Michigan, that 68% of the votes were switched in that town. And what system did they use? Dominion. 40 out of the 58 counties in California use Dominion. It has been proven that it is easy to switch votes. If you vote for Smith, your vote goes to Jones. The algorithm is set up. And here's the problem. And Harmeet knows this as well as anybody. Under state law, before every election, and I think it's 30 days, but I'm not positive as to the number of days, the county chair in each county is brought into the registrar of voters office along with all the other county chairs of the other parties, and they are run through the system. They are shown how the system works and its process. Now, I have some disagreements with your chair, Sean Connolly. But on a personal level, I like Shane. He's a nice guy. He knows nothing about computer algorithms. Randall Jordan, who's a close friend of mine and chair in San Luis Obispo County, great conservative. He knows nothing about algorithms. He admits it. I don't know of any county chair in the state, and there may be some, where the chair of LA County is a psychiatrist. What does he know about algorithms? He doesn't even know how to run his own meetings. He doesn't allow Republicans who are not members of the committee to attend. And if you attend his meeting because you're a member, you're not allowed to tell anybody what went on. But he's a psychiatrist. What does he know about algorithms and the inner workings of computers? And I could go up and down the state talking about different county chairs. And she knows that. She knows us just pro forma going through this system. We need real people with real computer expertise to go into those meetings with the registrar of voters to be able to ask the technical questions of computers. Look, I know a lot about policy, a lot about politics. I could talk about that. Obviously, I use my computer a lot. I have no idea what's inside my computer. I have no idea how it works. I just know it does. And if I make a mistake like keeping the speakers off, that's my fault, not the computer's fault. But I know what an algorithm is. I have no idea how it works. So why would you want to show me something? I couldn't say yay or nay that's good or bad, but that's what they're doing, and she knows better. We also know, as she does, 440,000 dead people and people up the state got live ballots. What is she talking about when she says there's no voter fraud? Sending a ballot to a dead person is fraud. Sending somebody who moved 10 years ago to Texas a ballot from California is fraud. 440,000 cases of fraud. What is she talking about?
I never quite understood that position, but Rowena, do you see something out there?
Questions, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. This one is a set of economic questions for you, and I don't know if you want to tackle it, but I'll ask you. And this applies not just to California, but to the nation. As you know, the response to COVID-19 has been devastating for many small businesses, right? And the middle class in general. We seem to be coming back now, but there are some things that are really troubling. For example, food prices are rising. Historically, that is one of the first places where we see inflation. Last year, we heard stories of crops being plowed under and livestock being destroyed due to COVID. And these things will take years to recover. Raw materials has been skyrocketing. Lumber has tripled in the last few months. I've been trying to put up a fence. It's costing me $15,000. Copper has doubled. And I've heard complaints of shortages. Some things are just not available. And here's the question. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on our economic future. Would you expect some kind of inflation? We had the same inflation 40 years ago. Do you see major shortages coming? In which case, should people start stocking up on essentials? What are your thoughts around this?
We are going to head into an era of inflation. We are in an era, though we may not see it, of recession nationally and depression here in California, we are going to see a massive transformation of the stock market. This morning, the stock market was at a little over 33,000 on the Dow. We're probably going to lose about 25% of that within a year. You can't keep spending money that you don't have. That comes from two sources. One, borrowing from China. The other is printing money, and the Federal Reserve just prints money with no backing to it. As far as the shortages, the lumber is a great example. One of the reasons we have a lumber shortage is because we have extremely high tariffs on lumber coming into this country on one hand. On the other hand, we can't go into the forest to log the lumber that's on American land, especially here in California. So those two concurrent activities causes the price of lumber to go up. Then you talk about food, call it food stuff, whether it's fruits, vegetables, or dairy products, and just the general term food stuff. One of the major reasons the cost of food stuff is going up is because the cost of transportation, transporting that food stuff from the farm to the grocery store has gone up dramatically because the cost of gasoline has gone up. And as the cost of gasoline and diesel go up, the cost of transportation goes up. And that's why the cost of food stuff has been going up the last few months. Joe Biden, I mean, you all buy gasoline. You should buy your gasoline the next time you need to gas up. I know a great gas station off the LBJ freeway in Dallas, $2.39 for unleaded gas. How much are you paying up there for unleaded gas? Down here, it's up to $4.09 for unleaded gas. And the reason for this is when you stop oil drilling, both statewide and nationally, you have to import it. And I did a story, I think today in my newsletter. The governor has decided to stop all oil drilling in the state, but there's good news. Joe Biden is negotiating with the Iranians to bring in oil and gas into our state. By doing so, we will be financing terrorism at a high cost to the consumer. Right now in the state of California, we import $90 million worth of oil every day, mostly from the Middle East, mostly from terrorist countries. Gov.Newsom may be, until Joe Biden becomes it, Gov.Newsom may be the biggest financier of terrorism on the face of the earth by his policies on oil. And so government has a big role to play in the inflation that's coming, the high cost of stuff. Now, as you may have heard previously on these calls, I love to grocery shop. I don't allow my wife to grocery shop. I know all the prices. I've watched the inflation. At Smart and Final, I was able to get in November and October a 5-pound thing of shredded cheese for $11.99 for 5 pounds. Now it's $17.99 for the same 5 pounds just a few months later at Smart and Final. I know the prices and I watch them go up. It's a disaster. I was in Walmart a couple of days ago and I was shocked because I hadn't been to Walmart in a while. And I was shocked at how high their prices have gone on staples that I had been buying before. Eggs used to be, they used to have a great sale, 18 eggs for $1.87. Now it's 18 eggs for $2.49. And just crazy, just crazy. But government has a large role to play in this. It's not a natural operation.
No. Jan, can we ask more questions or are we out of time?
Well, we're at 11:02 and we usually try to ensure that Steve can be done at 11 o'clock to be conscious of his time.
Okay.
I'll be glad to take two more questions, just to.
Okay.
Quick one here.
Wendy, do you have a question or you want me to ask?
Yeah, there's a quick one here. What happens if Newsom decides to resign before the recall election? Is that a possibility?
It's a big possibility. The only reason he will resign before the election is because he sees he's going to lose the recall. And by resigning, he can't be recalled. Therefore, the Democrat lieutenant governor becomes governor. He will fall on his sword for the party. And I would expect if the polls are that close or that he looks like he's losing, he will resign. And the good news is, this sounds terrible. The good news is playing that type of manipulative game will work against the Democrats for 2022. That the people will see it for what it is, a power grab rather than good government.
So true. Rowena, do you have a last question there?
Yes. And this one has to do with energy policies. We are shutting down cheap, reliable, clean energy sources, nuclear, clean coal, natural gas, and even hydroelectric. And we are becoming even more dependent on expensive, unreliable wind and solar. At the same time, we are not managing our forests or updating our electrical infrastructure. So we have recurring forest fires with the incumbent destruction and loss of life. Is there any hope for injecting some sanity into California's energy policy, or should we all go buy generators?
Buy a generator. I believe the energy policy of California, which is going to cause the recall of Governor Newsom, will explode sometime this summer because of the brownouts and blackouts that we have now are going to continue, but even larger when we hit the summer, when air conditioners are being used and other electrical devices are being used. There's a bill by Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher, infamous for AB 5, that by the year 2024, no more gas lawnmowers, no more gas chainsaws, saws. My New York accent comes out every once in a while. Anything that's gas powered will be outlawed in the state of California. We are heading into third world development. Just like in the third world, you don't know how often the lights are going to be on, when they're going to be on. It's totally unstable. But I believe there's going to be a catastrophe this summer, and that will be the end of Gavin Newsom.
Right. Well, Steve, I get three comments here. Okay. Number one, I don't think Doug Case wanted to clarify a few things. And when you said how many people died of the vaccine in America, right, so far, right. The number is what?
2,249. And that number comes from the CDC. Every Friday, they release the update. We don't have today's update yet, but last Friday, the number was 2,249.
And can you remind me when the terrorist took down the Twin Towers, how many people died?
3,000.
Okay. So I think we may have a talking point.
Smoke and fire and a lot of catastrophe that you could see on TV. Watching one person at a time die because they took a vaccine isn't as pleasant on TV.
And also, Doug wanted to clarify that you did say $90 million per day?
Per day.
Imported. Okay.
Into California. I want to make it clear. Not talking about nationally.
Just nationally.
No,
okay.
California, 90 million a day.
90 million in California.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, you got that, Doug. Okay.
I don't know what the national is. I just know California.
I mean, these are astounding numbers. I mean, these are the kinds of numbers we should memorize, make little cards. As long, if you start saying this even to your Democrat neighbors, well, you know, but losing your single family house
Yeah.
is a nonpartisan issue.
And Doug asked the question if this is all from Iran. No, it's from several Middle Eastern countries, not Iran. But once Biden has his negotiations, we're going to start getting Iranian oil into California.
Thank you so much. You know, someday you ought to talk to us about, is there a way to fix the California Republican Party? We can tell you later. Anyway, thank everybody for being here. As soon as we can, we will have our recording up there. And thank you so much, Steve. We'll see you hopefully next month. Okay.
You got it. Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.